This program is brought to you by 3C TV. Like what you learned? Visit our website or follow us on Facebook and Twitter to keep up on the latest 3C TV programs.
All right, this session is in regards to the veteran's second transition. You know, we have, with the community colleges, we focus a lot on intake and prior to discharge or when they arrive on our campus, that transitional process and some of the reintegration angst that some student veterans go through along the way. We focus a bit on that second transition to employment, where we have our job developers or placement officers or work with our local one-stops. But in my opinion, there isn't enough focus on the second transition piece from community college up to our university partners. There's three different types, or really four different types of universities that our students transfer to. First being the not-for-profits, the nonprofits, and some of them are wonderful, some of them verge on some of the for-profit work. And then we have the for-profit institutions, some great players, some wonderful options, and some not so good players. Then we have our public institutions, be it UC or Cal State within our area. And actually there's the fifth, the out-of-state public institutions. So, you know, as counselors, as certifying officials, administrators, we know this, that there's a different transition based off of what type of system you're entering after your community college stay. Now, to really gear this presentation, I kind of asked the folks on the panel to be on their toes because we may sway one way or the other. But format-wise, what I want to do is first start with a round robin of questions that I'll ask that are prepared to get this a little stimulated for about half an hour or so, which are general questions that commonly come from the field. Then we'll go into question answer where you as the crowd can ask the university partners from the CSU and UC some of your questions and some of your concerns and you know, find their guidance as they see our students after they arrive. While we start, as I need them to be on their toes, I want to see who's in the crowd so we make sure we cater this conversation to the audience. So a little bit of flip in the classroom as I see some instructors here. Who is from the California Community College system? Holy cow. Wonderful. You'd be surprised. That's not always the case at these summits. Universities? Okay. Public universities? Okay. And then neither. Who's outside of our system? Any of our partners here? We do have a few that are in the audience at the summit. So, okay, so it's mostly community college, but we do have some university partners. And when we get to the question and answer stage, if any of the other universities would like to chime in, I really open that up. I want this to be interactive so it's valuable. You leave here with a few tangible items. Some of these last long. This is only an hour and 15 minutes. I could probably talk the whole time, as they know. But we want you to leave with at least 3 tangible items that you can use and bring back to your campus for your student veterans or for yourself professionally. So those kernels of truth may come from the audience, they may come from our panel. They sure as heck probably won't come from me. Who am I? Terrence Nelson. I am the Dean of Transfer, Career, and Special Programs at Saddleback College. It's a big name for student services. I have about 12 programs and departments underneath me, and great faculty and staff that I work with. One of the programs that I directly oversee is our VETS program, Veterans Education and Transition Services. We had a great student panel a little bit earlier, and a couple of our graduate and a soon-to-be graduate of Saddleback was on that panel. So you heard a little bit about what we do. One of the other things that I was moonlighting in doing in the past was, now I am the past president, but I was the president for about 3.5 years of the Region 8 Veterans Program Director Consortium. You'll talk a little bit about partnership, and I think that's a good tangible to bring back to your region is regional consortiums that include not just your community college, but your university partners, the good players in your university partners. So you can come in and have these conversations locally. So I really, that's a little bit of a plug for the regional consortia, but bring that back to your hometown, please. Now, Dr. Jackson's, I was moved Dr. Jackson's speech a little bit earlier. It was pretty amazing. It had a different flair to it than some of the other openings I've seen. And she spoke to lost freight, merchandise that's lost in the shuffle. She called it frustrated cargo. I just loved that term. I was like, wow, that's perfect for our session, because we have a lot of frustrated cargo, as we say. I've applied to the CSU. What do I do now? We don't want our student veterans to be frustrated cargo. They could turn into other issues. So this blue ribbon panel is going to talk about some of the fears and anxieties that our student veterans have as they move along. We all know them very, very well. We face them when our students don't want to kind of depart. They like the port they're in, because we have a great program and we have some wonderful staff at some of our colleges, and they're like, hey, this feels really comfortable. I'll take another semester or two and burn up my benefits. So it's about, how do we make them depart? How do we encourage that departure so they move on to what their ultimate goal is? There's also the issue of predatory recruitment that we all know. If any of you has anybody worked an ed fair or a career fair on one base, on a base somewhere? Okay, or just out in the general public? You're blind if you don't notice some of the predatory recruiting methods. And with the executive order from about 1.5 years ago, they speak to, you can't use incentive-based recruiting. The term recruitment in itself scares me as an administrator. It should be outreach and education. But we know there's predatory recruitment. How do we funnel our students appropriately with the good players out there and make sure that when that handoff happens, they're successful? And how do we identify those predatory recruiters? The last thing that I want to touch on that's really big at Saddleback at our institution is financial concerns. When you've used up 3 years, or it's not really 3 years, it would be, 27 months of benefits. When you've used up your benefits, what are you going to do? And a lot of our students, actually all of us have faced this, where our students burn up the benefits too quickly because maybe they flounder the first semester or two. Or maybe 64% of our students place under freshman composition. We had 90% within the last 3 cohorts place at Algebra 1, and that's 2 levels below transfer level. So when we look at those, just locally at Saddleback, that spreads out through the state. You're using up those benefits early on. What do they do financially at the next level? So that kind of sets the stage for what this presentation is going to be, and I hope that the panelists looked at kind of what subgroups we all fit in. I'm going to have one last kind of poll. Who here is an evil administrator like me? All right, yeah, we're the evil ones. We're the ones to be friends with, because you can use us to your advantage. The faculty. Who are the faculty? There's wonderful, great faculty. Smile, as my faculty's here. And then staff members. Staff members. Okay. So we see a little bit of a predominance of staff, and the minority is obviously management administration. So let me run through the group, and we'll start with Jay. If you can give a simple introduction, who you are, where you work, and what you do.
Sure. I'm so glad to be here today. I'm Jay Derrico, and I get to coordinate all our veteran services on campus at CSU Channel Islands. We're the youngest university in the CSU system. We've just are going through our 11th year. So it's an exciting place to work. I'm really excited about what I get to do. I was able to begin my position as our coordinator for the very first vet center that we put together 3 years ago. So I've enjoyed that work so far, and always continue to try to learn and grow what we can do with our student veterans.
Hello, my name is Adeli Duran, and I'm the Director of Veteran Services Center at UC Irvine. I've been there for about 8 years and have seen the development of our veteran services. I started off as a program coordinator, doing kind of a dual hat role with something else, and as the program coordinator was also the certifying official, and I currently still serve as the sole certifying official on our campus. We are still in the development of some backup support for the certifying process. And then I oversee the program development, which includes any events and services, working with our student organization, hosting an annual appreciation dinner, doing fundraising, and grant writing and such to get some scholarships in for our students. And I think that's it.
Hello, I'm Catherine Ward, the Program Coordinator for Veteran Student Services at Cal State Fullerton. And I'm responsible for overseeing all of the support services for our student veterans, but we do engage with our prospective students as well. We currently are a two-stop shop where our certification office is located in a different building, so I am the liaison for our students when they are in need of benefit and financial aid advising. I am also the mental health counselor on site for our student veterans, and I'm sure as we go you'll hear more about what we do.
And so the audience is really familiar with you folks. Can you tell us how many student veterans, at least certified for benefits, how many are attending your institution, veterans and dependents, if you have that number, and then the other piece is your background and why you're in this field?
Okay. I'll start since I have the mic. We say we have approximately 500 student veterans. We are certifying about 450. And as you know, sometimes identifying the exact number of veterans on our campuses can be very challenging. We, as of fall of 2012, I still haven't received 13 numbers. We are the third largest CSU, we have the third largest veteran population in the CSU system. And then the fourth, when we include our dependents, we have about 250 dependents. And our program support services are extended to dependents of veterans.
We have about 220 veterans. That includes numbers that aren't certified. Right now, I think our numbers are in about in the 180 range of veterans. We've starting to track that and working with our Office of Institutional Research to know what our other numbers are. Of the 180-ish, about 30 to 40 are graduate students. We have a large population of MBA students because our School of Business has been doing some heavy recruiting for MBA veteran students. And then in terms of our dependent population, we have somewhere in the range of 400 to 500 dependents. It's actually a huge range once we add in the CalVet fee waivers. And of those, we're probably certifying close to 100 dependents between Chapter 35 and Chapter 33.
And as a growing school, we have about 100 right now veterans in our population and 120 dependents, and our services are included for both groups.
And you all get 50%, so I don't know if that's a fail rate for your grade, because I asked two questions. I want to get the group, and I think this is important, to know from maybe a personal and professional level who the points of contact are. So when you make that call, there's something else that connects you with that individual. So that's why I asked the second question. If you could go right back down the row, I'd appreciate it. So Catherine, you weren't the only one. I saw that look. Why did you get into this field? How did you get in this field?
So I've done a lot of different work in student services, student affairs through the CSU system, and been working in the past with housing, with student activities, but the most recent before this was career. So just before moving to this new position of coordinator of veteran services, I was working in the career field, and I think that's really been helpful to me. That's one of my big focuses, that I think that our students are only successful not only if they graduate, but have a career at the end. So that's a big emphasis in what I've been doing through our center is have internships and helping students with that aspect of finding a career. So.
Honestly, I started into this field by chance. I was really interested in higher education in general and wanted to serve college students. And I started off that half position that I talked about earlier was actually with the volunteer center at the time. And when I applied for that position, it was a 50-50, but our population was so small that they said, well, it's 50-50 on the job description, but it's really a lot less, and we're hoping to ramp up some of the programs and services. And since you've done a lot of event planning before, we're hoping that you can bring some events. And so just as the population grew, my role in what I was doing grew. And at the time that I was applying for the position, my cousin, who's the same age as I am, had just enlisted in the Army. He's still currently serving and is stationed in Hawaii. So at the time, I was still also interested in just wanting to learn more as to why people chose to go into the Army and how I could support him when he came back or when he was done. And he's chosen to make a career out of it, so he's not done yet. because that was, now almost 8 or 9 years ago when he enlisted.
I like to say that this position or this niche found me. Previously, our Veterans Student Services was housed as a program of our Women's Center, which at that time and even up until recently didn't make a lot of sense. But it was started by a student who was an intern and an Iraqi veteran who started a Student Veterans Association as part of his internship with the Women's Center. Well, I got laid off from a job of 12 years in business management, and I was a human service major at the time. So I decided to do some volunteer work at the Women's Center. And so they said, well, we have a perfect job for you. We want you to help plan the Veterans Appreciation Night dinner. So I started out as an event planner for Veteran Student Services with really no experience or exposure to the veteran population. But it didn't take long until I realized that this was the population I wanted to work with. And so I volunteered, and then I interned. We wrote a grant, and we were awarded a Department of Education FIPSI grant when they were able to hire me as the assistant coordinator. And from that point, I started my work primarily with women veterans. And then over the last couple years, our program coordinator moved on. I applied for the job, and I have since now served as the program coordinator for a couple years at our program, and feel very fortunate to be able to serve this population. In that process, I did get my undergraduate degree in human services, went on to get my master's in counseling, and so then now I'm able to actually do counseling for our veterans on our campus, as well as all of the program development and oversight of support services for them.
Thank you, Catherine. It's really easy to have a passion and a love for working with our student veterans, and we all get to this place in different pathways. And I recall watching you guys grow, Adelie and Catherine, in your profession from the early stages, and so it's great to share that with the crowd as they go through their journeys in veteran services. Some of you are new, novices, and some of you have a lot more years than us. So I'm going to start these questions, and I really want to hear about your institutions and what you see in the community college students that are coming in to transfer into your institutions. Question number one, how does your institution connect with feeder community colleges? And tagged with that, those community colleges that don't have that relationship, how can they develop that?
I'll get started. Well, in a few ways. Our university does have an outreach center, and that outreach center is responsible for doing all of the outreach in connection with our feeder schools and community colleges in addressing and hopefully kind of leading the path to transfer to our university. The vast majority of our student veterans are transfer students. What we are able to do out of our Veteran Student Service Office is a couple things. We are part of the Region 8 Consortium, so we stay connected to our community colleges in our area. But we also hold what we call a community college campus visit, which is a pre-enrollment orientation, if you will. So we extend the invitation during times of kind of pre-application, the pre-application process. And we invite community college prospective students to our campus. And we introduce them to our staff, to the transfer center, to the certification office, to our financial aid officers, to our student veterans who are attending school and part of the Student Veterans Association and our leadership. And we welcome them onto campus. We basically orientate them to what it could be like for them to transfer to our university. And we give them a tour and hopefully a vision for continuing on to a four-year degree. So that is primarily one of the things that we do. We are now going to be instating an open house because we were only holding that one day, kind of pre-application, and realized that we probably weren't reaching as many students as we could if we had maybe a week-long open house where students on their own or maybe with a friend could come and visit our office. So we'll be instating an open house now for prospective students for what will now be for fall of 2014.
And let me commend Cal State Fullerton that they give early notice to our community colleges. So, managers, administrators can release staff to take that van over with a group of student veterans that are prospective transfer students. That early notice has helped significantly with the local colleges to really increase the numbers at your transfer days. So, Adelie?
Okay, so all of our outreach happens through our admissions and relations office. So I work closely with admissions. We have someone who we've designated as a veteran liaison through admissions. So oftentimes we do get the phone calls in our office asking about the admissions process. We usually will give preliminary admissions information to students and forward that on to our vet liaison. And so all of our admissions officers have a site that they go to at the different community colleges in our region. And so oftentimes our vet person will also visit the vet centers in the area. And she also will be doing some of the fairs. And if she can't do military-specific fairs, then those will be forwarded on to me and to see if I can attend those military-specific fairs. The other thing is I also sit on Region 8. And so I've met a lot of our community college counselors through that forum. And we've done specific outreach with IVC and Saddleback to bring, which are our two local community colleges, to bring students over for like pre-application period or pre-orientation. Usually during the spring is when we invite them and have a special orientation with our vice chancellor. Admissions financial aid is there, kind of talking about the transition process and what benefits and opportunities UCI has to offer for them. I also work closely with admissions through their different outreach programs that they hold on campus. There's a program called Transfer Track is what it's called, and there's a fall one, and there's like I think it's called it's called something different in the spring, and I usually partner on those and sit and table to outreach to our veteran students who are coming in through those programs. During the spring, once the admit letters go out, then we send personalized letters, email letters to our veteran students, welcoming them to UCI and inviting them to some of our orientations, as we'll hold a special orientation during our campus open house. And also we'll do orientations over the summer. Specifically, that's more specifically with our certifying process and getting all those benefits started to inform them the best that we can. And that's it.
We do many of the same services as they presented here, but in addition to that, some of the things that we've done, I think it's really important that our students coming in see me as the point person. So when I am reaching out to them as they are going through the admission process, I want them to know that I'm going to be taking care of them through this whole process. So that's one of the things I like to get out to them. Another thing that we do is we have regular meetings with our counterparts, our colleagues within the community college system. We have basically 4 feeder schools that come into our university. So we like to meet together as a group, probably about quarterly, and we like to talk about the issues that we're all going through, either at the university or community college, with certifying our students and programming and things. So that's been a great help. I think they've felt more and more comfortable with me along the way and feel like they can strongly recommend, refer their students, and that kind of that bridge has been built between the community college system and our particular university. One other thing I'd like to add is that we have a special orientation that we do for all our transfer students. Again, almost probably 85–90% of our students that are veterans are transfers. So I kind of key in that area. And what we do is we have a special transfer advising workshop just for our student veterans and dependents. And what we do is we make sure that that transfer advising workshop is the very first workshop within the series that advising is doing. And in a way that enables our transfers to have somewhat of a priority registration and as well. because they get to register for classes ahead of all the rest of the transfers, and most times to the freshmen. So that's something that we've put together so that they can get that advantage, a little more advantage, and then also get to know what our services are.
All right, thank you. I'm trying to recollect the latest 260 report from last spring from the VA office, and the numbers that are coming to my head is the UCs, the California community colleges have the most student veterans of all public entities, public institutions, and for obvious cases with open access. UCs, we have about 40 times the amount of student veterans that are certified on benefits in the community college system than the UCs have. We have about 8 times the amount than the CSUs have. So we are like the big fire hose that's coming up, trying to go into a little garden hose, a weak little garden hose that doesn't admit a lot. And so it's very important that we have, a good understanding of the different type of support systems we have. The community colleges, as open access and having those numbers, must bolster up a lot of those services for all transitional issues. The next question is, what are the major transitional issues you see among the student veterans at the university level? Once they get to you, after they've progressed through our system, what are you guys seeing on your campuses?
Well, I'll highlight 2 things that I see. One is, again, that we have probably 85, like I said, 90% of our students are transfers. So that's the way they're coming in. I know right now of maybe 2 of our student veterans that started as freshmen. So that's important that we lean in to those transfers when they're coming in. But the issues that I often see in those students is that it feels like I also do a transitional class in the fall for all our transfers that help them kind of transition to school. And they, as a whole, I see community college students coming in as transfers. They're like, what is it like to be in big school? That's kind of how they kind of refer it to when we are. So I think there's a fear there just in general. And so through this class I teach, through the way we present ourselves to our students coming in, that's a really important thing to say you can do it. And some of the ways that we can help them transition, one is we have a mentorship program that we match our new students coming in with existing students. So it helps them in that first semester transition, and they meet with them usually about 3 times a semester to help them through that transition. And then also we have a whole workshop series that helps with that. We have a workshop series that includes time management, personal finances, of study skills. So it helps them with the academics as well.
For us, I think the big transition issue is moving from the semester system to the quarter system. Our campus is on the quarter system. It's much more fast-paced, for those of you that don't know, and that's a huge shift. In addition to realizing that academic counseling doesn't happen in my office, that it's not for specific populations, it's academic counseling happens within the academic school. And so really navigating that process that, all of their academic related work will be happening within their major, and there will be an expert in their major that will help them choose their classes. And so I think that's kind of just a big shift and understanding that the actual academic advising doesn't happen. I can help guide you and I can tell you, different things, but in terms of what your structure is going to be, that's in academic advising. The other thing I think is just realizing that we have so many different offices that do, that we have kind of satellite offices. There's a career center on our campus. It's not, career counseling isn't happening through my office. And so it's a different structure, I think, and I think that those are some of the big issues. We try and provide different services. So at the beginning of the quarter, we do some workshops on kind of what are all these different offices and kind of who are the contacts in each of these offices that work specifically with veterans. We've, as Marshall Thomas will be presenting tomorrow's VetNet Ally program, that's one of the programs we've adopted on our campus. I work closely with Marshall on that, and so from that we've designated, even though we have a large amount of staff that are VetNet allies, we've designated specific VetNet allies that each of these kind of important offices, who those people are, so that the students know exactly who they can contact in that office that has not only received training, but is passionate about the community and wants to work with veteran students. And so that's kind of what we try and really refer out those resources to help with those barriers in the transition.
I echo that. I think one of the initial transitional issues that we find is that community college transfers students ask often, "You mean I don't have an ed plan? How do I know what classes I'm supposed to take, especially when their benefits are dependent on it?" And so learning a new system around general academic advising and major advising oftentimes can be challenging. And also all the different departments that we have on campus. We do have liaisons that we can do a warm handoff if a student is in need of some additional financial aid advising or they're still having issues with their transcripts. But really adjusting to that idea that everything may not be in one house or one place. As the student continues on with us, I think that there are two other things that seem to be pretty prevalent. And one is their continued identity development. Our student veterans have done some adjusting at a community college. They've adapted in some ways, some better than others. But as they continue to move through their education at the university level, they are faced then with moving through their identity from service member to veteran to student veteran to now employer or employee, career. And so preparing them for that identity development is a lot of the work that we do in our center. And the need for camaraderie around that process is still so important for them, because that process is unique in many ways to the student veteran as they identify, as they continue to kind of explore their identification around their veteran status and their now civilian status as well. So transitional issues, still the need for camaraderie, the need for support around their continued development as an individual, a civilian, looking at career once they attain that degree. Are certainly some of the issues that we face regularly.
That third transition is a difficult one.
Yes.
For anyone, for all students, but specifically with the veterans who have gone through other transitions. There's someone in the crowd, you kind of gave a little joke earlier about Pat O'Rourke. He's one of the folks that puts on and developed VetNet Ally with Marshall Thomas. And it's a wonderful way to establish those points of contact, to bring a training in, but then identify with a sticker, what are those points of contact? Who is going to be vet friendly? Not necessarily give a handout or make it easier on you, but have a cultural understanding of who you are and understand the things you're coming in, the tools you have, the skills you have, but also potentially there might be some baggage you have that you're dealing with. I think those VetNet Ally trainings are very important to establish those points of contact. That leads into this next piece of what have you seen that's been established on other campuses other than your own? I'm going to mix it up a little bit to establish a seamless handoff from the community college up to the university. What have you seen out there in environmental scan? Because all of you did some program development and you've seen some best practices. What have you seen as kind of some of those best things that they could bring back? Maybe give one each for the crowd.
Well, I recently learned about what Jay does, which I think is something that we certainly want to implement, and it sounds like you do it as well, is actually having our staff or our student veterans kind of at community colleges, kind of in their centers, connecting with the community college student veteran. We certainly need to do more of that in our feeder schools and even maybe at large. I think that that probably is one of the most important pieces to continuing the connection, the idea of how important connection and belonging is on behalf of the veteran. So to be able to provide that from even before they get to us, I think is wonderful.
Our students started the Veteran Student Outreach Program last year. It's a student-initiated outreach program that was funded by the university. And I think that was, it was the first time they did it, but I think it's an excellent model, and I think that's part of what I want to see more of. We do partner with certain institutions at our local level, but I wish that we could be really sending out more of our student veterans out and doing regular hours. During this specific outreach program, was for a short time, and so it wasn't something consistent. And so that's something that I've seen at other campuses, that they really are, paying their students to go out and do this kind of direct outreach, which is different. And with our institution, there's probably some bureaucratic things in terms of how our admissions is the one that does that kind of outreach. But really hoping to maybe implement that in the future is something that is one of my goals.
One of the things I've seen is really utilizing the work study for students, which is pretty much free to have those. And I have a student this year that's graduating, and he wants to continue through grad school, and he would love to be able to do some outreach to our local Navy base. So that's really close to us. And for us, I'm really learning how to best use that the work study program, and trying to find ways to using those students and the best way to reaching the next group coming in.
Yeah, we keep coming back to the human element and the point of contact. I appreciate that in Dr. Joseph's panel, as he was stating or inferring that when there's an institution that's doing well, people speak to names, regardless of the institution. When there's an institution that's maybe struggling, they talk about programs. I had trouble with financial aid, or I had trouble with residency, not necessarily an individual. And so those points of contact mean so much at all of our institutions. What I wanted to hit on is just a suggestion, as I'm hearing you, that the UCs and CSUs that are in the crowd, well, when we need the outreach, when we need those contacts peer-to-peer, is in September and October, right before the application period. So they know, hey, there are veterans over there. It is veteran friendly. So, if I can encourage anything, it would be send them on over our ways, and our doors are open. Let me ask another one. What advice or hints do you have that we can bring back to our student veterans that are interested in applying to your institutions? And please don't say take math and English early, because we always say that.
One of the things is to find out at the universities how friendly their universities are for their vets. Do research and find out, do they have special programs that'll help them. One of the things that we've just added recently is more of a rolling admissions for our student vets. So even though the official admissions deadline is closed online through CSU Mentor, we'll allow paper applications for our vets, because we feel that they're a special class, and that'd be good to be available to them. So ask a variety of questions as they're going through the search for their university, and find out if they really have the programs that'll help them.
Jay, is that just Channel Islands? Because I heard a couple. Huh? What institution, or do you know the other Cal States that are still accepting paper apps for veterans?
We've talked about it before. We have once a month we have a conference call, but I couldn't even tell you. I know there's other ones that do similar things, but I couldn't tell you which ones.
So your suggestion is contact the local Veteran Service Office at that Cal State?
We might have an answer.
Northridge is? Fullerton? San Bernardino? Okay, beautiful.
I think Long Beach too.
And if you do not know, call up that local institution, because that information could be a lifeline. If your benefits are running out and you don't have any more payable courses, you may be sitting out for 6 months if you don't get into your university. So.
Related to that, there's some universities that allow students to forego the Cal State's Golden 4. So I know that Northridge will allow students to
And along that line, though sometimes some of these rules, I know institutions don't want to make them public because they don't want the plug to be pulled. So I get that you don't want to post certain things, but the more that's posted for specialized support for this special pop, similar to many of other special populations that have a different set of standards based off of their circumstances. I keep going back to the old story about Jack Williams and his mid-year transfer when UCI wasn't taking mid-year transfers. And he got in mid-year. And guess what? It took him a year and a half, and he got into UCI Law School. Amazing student, and it was an exceptional situation. But it worked. It worked for the student, worked for the university. So there's always those anomalies. Adelie?
So, I mean, one of my suggestions, I think, with the UC app is to remember that it's comprehensive review. And so with the UC application, they have to make sure that they are mentioning their veteran status in their personal statement. It is so important. And for the reader, and I used to work in admissions. My husband is still currently a reader and will be reading through the cycle, both freshman and transfer applications. But they don't see that data, the demographic data where they clicked off the veteran status. That's not necessarily seen. So they have to mention it in their personal statement and make a compelling reason as to how that changed them. How did that improve their lives? And I think that's, as I think anyone that works in the UC system and has done admissions and recruitment, knows that it's all in the personal statement. And obviously their extracurriculars and their grades and all of that. But I know that the UCs are admitting veterans. And I think all of our UCs are admitting large number of veterans because they are stellar students. We're just seeing higher numbers at UCLA and Berkeley because they are being admitted there. That's just the reality right now. And then in terms of kind of a special process, you could say, our institution, definitely doesn't publicize it, but, they do have what's called an appeal to closure. And I think all the UCs have some kind of a process called that. It's usually through their admissions office, usually buried in the admissions website as to how to do an appeal to closure. And so I have the information in the direct link, and oftentimes when I get that phone call from a veteran about their specific circumstance, they do, to a certain extent, have to have a specific circumstance. They were deployed during the application period. Jack is definitely a special case, and I don't know if they would be doing that anymore, to be honest. But I know definitely if they're deployed and or didn't have access to the internet, or if there's a specific reason why they couldn't apply during the regular cycle, they definitely will accept an appeal to closure. And I have seen vets enter during the winter cycle. They definitely won't, because we're on the quarter system, the winter is January, they definitely won't take during the spring, which is the March start time. So it's definitely an exception for the winter.
I have the benefit of also overseeing the transfer center at Saddleback College, and we do fairly well. We transfer about 3,500 students per year. One of the other things as a best practice I'd like to throw out there, and this is for all your students, but we make use of this for our student veterans as well, is hiring folks that have the minimum qualifications, that are great counselors, but are also readers at the UC. They know what they're looking at. And they also work as transfer counselors. So it works really well as a great relationship for our adjunct counselors. Those of you that are faculty or administrators, it's a good little hint.
With all of that, encourage your student veterans to come see us because more times than not, we can help them. And again, it just speaks to that point of contact, that personal connection. We have run some analysis on if a student veteran engages in our office, how likely are they to return? And with our male veterans, they are 50 to 60% likely to engage and stay engaged. And then we know that once they're engaged, they are very likely to be retained, and if they're likely to be retained, they are definitely likely to graduate. With our women veterans, they're 70 to 80% likely to stay engaged. And so if there's some way that we can communicate to our veterans how important it is to make contact with someone, that it isn't necessarily about asking for help or asking support. It really is about their student success. It really is just about engagement. And if we can maybe encourage and promote that message, then I think that we will definitely see those retention and graduation rates that we're all hoping for.
Okay, one last question, then we'll open it up to the crowd. what issues have you seen, and what solutions has your university come up with in terms of housing and financial aid? We often hear about lack of affordability in housing, the quantity of housing, the process is just wild and crazy. I had an interesting one just recently that a young man had firearms, but couldn't have them housed in his on-campus housing, so he's looking at housing off-site, which is a very interesting one. We hear about these interesting things with housing, and specifically with if I'm using off-site housing, it's too expensive. So how do I handle this? Can you speak about some of those issues and some solutions?
We are just starting to look at solutions for housing. I actually just had a meeting with our Residence Life interim director about a month ago to look at having some themed housing or some reserved housing, not only for our student veterans, but for our dependents as well. And so we're hoping that we will not only be looking at available housing, but making it as affordable. Once I can come up with a plan, then looking for funding to help subsidize that housing. With financial aid, that certainly is still a challenge for us. I asked my financial aid liaison if she could run some data for me so that I can figure out how many of our student veterans are actually applying for financial aid. And what we found out in the history is that once the post 9/11 GI Bill was instated on our campus, our financial applications for our veterans decreased by 95% because they didn't know they were entitled, because they didn't necessarily want to take money from those whom they thought were more deserving. And so part of our orientation is apply for financial aid. Many times that's past the beginning of March priority deadline. So at community college, if we can help our student veterans understand how important it is for them to apply for financial aid and to continue that application process early on in the year, then when we do come to that final last year and semester, they will already have in place maybe the university grant to help them finish school, certainly access to Cal Grants and Pell Grants. So
I can't stress that enough, that just fill out that FAFSA. Just see if you qualify. You did it the previous years while you're at the community college. Do it upon transfer.
For housing, maybe in 2010, 2011, we established a housing guarantee for our student veterans. So our campus is fortunate, I guess, and we have a lot of student housing. In the last few years, we've partnered with the American Campus Communities, and so they've built a lot of third-party housing on our campus. What that means, our guarantee housing means that our student veterans have access to any housing complex they would like. It doesn't necessarily mean that they will get the exact one that they want, but it definitely gives them access to graduate housing, which they would normally not have had access to. And the idea of really giving them that preference to graduate housing is so that they can be in a community where they are more with people their age, and our graduate housing also has family housing. So our family units can come and live on our campus. And that has been successful. One of the things with that change over the last few years, we work closely with housing, and they do a lot of workshops within the housing community for veteran-specific kind of social gatherings and events, and with female veterans and mothers, and trying to build kind of a network within that community. And what we've seen come out of that is that there's a lot more veterans even living in our community than we were aware of, because it's their spouse who got into graduate school. And so it's their spouse who's not necessarily identified as a veteran, and they, through their own graduate program, got into housing. And so there are a lot more veterans living on campus. Now, the firearm solution, there is no solution. Our campus does not allow firearms in our housing unit. That has been an issue as of recently, and there have been instances that have popped up on our campus, security and those kinds of issues. Luckily, nothing bad has happened. With financial aid, kind of what Catherine said, echoing, we do our best to inform our student veterans that they do qualify for financial aid. They should be applying. There's other monies that they have access to. We hope that I see a lot of it, and most of them are. I haven't done the numbers to know really what the percentage is that are applying for financial aid, but I know a good percentage are. And I know our campus has recently established a scholarship program, and I know Cal State Fullerton has, I think, an even better scholarship program. Unfortunately, I'm not there yet, But what we try to do is provide scholarships to veterans who have either exhausted their benefit or are not 100% eligible for their benefit. And so still those awards are still small. It's not really, you know, meeting the need per se, but we are working on developing all of our services, and have been doing lots and lots of grant writing to kind of get some of that money. And so this year we will be very fortunate, and we'll be giving out a lot of money in this next calendar year. So we're lucky to be providing that for our student veterans and giving them access to even more financial aid.
We do have some housing on campus just recently that we opened up that is in our faculty and staff housing. So they feel much more comfortable in that than the traditional housing, and that's just recent for us. But two other things about financial aid. One is that we just received a grant. Talking about grant writing, we just received a grant this year for internships for our students that are vets. So in fact, I just finished yesterday interviewing our finalists for that, and so we're able to give opportunities for paid internships for our student vets in their field of interest outside the university. And the other thing that I would just quickly talk about is there are scholarships out there, and we happen to have a really great community fund that's located in our area, and they have many scholarships for all different types of students. And student vets don't always have to look just for student vets kind of scholarships either. So you know, there's a lot of opportunity out there, and so that's something we publish to email to our students as well, so they can see that. And one thing that some of our students have done when they're running out of their GI Bill is many have qualified for the VOC rehab program. So that's another thing that we like to let them know, that even if they just have one more day left on their post 9/11, they can transfer into the VOC rehab and receive the same benefits. So.
I want to commend the VA for expanding the Vet Success Program and VOC rehab counselors onto our community college and some of the CSU campuses. There were 10 more MOUs signed in the state of California, and I believe it hit something at like 15 plus institutions. San Diego State's been doing it for quite a while. It's something that I hear in about 2 more years they're going to expand that, so be prepared if you would like a VOC rehab counselor from the VA to come on site. I can speak personally from my institution. It's worked very well. We have many, at our institution, we have a high proclivity of service-connected disability, and so many have the potential of qualifying and extending their benefits beyond. That could extend that 36 months to a lot longer and get them that bachelor's degree or graduate degree. Right now, I want to open it up. If anybody has any questions or comments related, Patty. What I need everybody to do is speak clearly into the microphone, or else we won't get this recorded for your YouTube moment.
One of the things that, an issue that has come up when we have students that transfer is that first semester, even though they're getting priority reg, by virtue of the timing, you usually don't have anybody to give them, priority reg would have already been over. And then oftentimes they don't have any counselors or faculty members to help them with their major coursework. And so I'm wondering, how do you get around getting them into the classes they need in order for them to qualify for their benefits?
Two things for us. One is, I think I mentioned, maybe I wasn't very clear, but we do have a special academic advising workshop just for them, and they get a version of priority registration because they're going to, at our school, they can go to that first workshop and get registered before any of the other transfers. So that's one way to do it. The second way we do that is when we're advising our students, we have a lot of specific university upper division requirements that we have. So there's always a prevalent amount of those sections. So a lot of times we have them start there because we always know there's going to be a lot of available sections open for our division and their requirements anyway that all students need to take. So that often helps them if they're having a hard time finding other classes.
Yeah, you know, we do, like he said, we do kind of a version of priority. Yes, it's not exactly priority registration, but we have a program over the summer called, maybe it is called Transfer Success, but we have a summer program. It's an orientation program. Our transfer students aren't required to go to them like our freshman applicants are. And so the hard part is really trying to convince transfer students to go to these programs. If they go to those programs, which are in June, then that gives them priority to schedule an appointment with an academic counselor that day or the next day that week. So the sooner that they are required to schedule an appointment with an academic counselor in order to enroll. And they are given that notification through various channels. So we always encourage them to schedule that appointment as early as possible in June, and then that gives them, in essence, the priority. And so they do have priority to register for those transfer programs if they so choose to go to them.
So are you saying that they don't have priority on your campus unless they go to that orientation?
They can schedule it as soon as they choose to schedule an appointment and there's availability to schedule an appointment with their academic office. They do have priority if they do it early. Our priority registration, our traditional priority registration really doesn't kick in until later because the reality is the current student population enrolled about 4 or 5 weeks ago. But our campus does designate specific courses that most transfer students will be taking, and I think most of the UCs do that. There are classes that are kind of X'd out for transfer students so that there is a place for them to go.
And Adelie, are you seeing issues specifically at your campus? Because everything's specific to your institution. Do you have students coming back and saying they're not getting into these payable courses or not being able to progress in their area of study?
No, unless they come to me in August and they can't, unless they're starting the process late, even though they've been notified several times, because as soon as they're admitted and they submit their statement of intent to register, they're getting various emails. So, I mean, the recommendation is make sure that they're checking their email. Whatever email they put on the admissions application, that's where all the communication is going.
We do have priority registration at Cal State Fullerton. We try to get that information out to our newly transferred students as soon as possible so that they can get their paperwork in and get qualified for that. But there are those who come in late. Priority registration date has already passed. We will get them a registration date as soon as we can when they come in. I have a student right now transferring spring 2014, came in my office yesterday, waitlisted on 2 classes that he needs for his major, and he needs in order to have 12 units to have 100% of his eligibility for his post-9/11. So what we do is we recommend the maybe obvious course of action for that student to speak with the professor, to speak with their assistant dean, but we will send them with a letter from our office or from our certification office that says, on the student's behalf, we ask that you make room for this student because their benefits are reliant on it. And I haven't had a student yet who has come back to me and said that he hasn't been able or she hasn't been able to get into their class. So we will work with the staff or the faculty. We will work with the assistant deans or the chair of the department to, as best as we can, make certain that our students get into the classes that they need. Sometimes, though, we do have to then kind of defer to the upper level GE classes. So they may not be major classes, but they do have to take 3 in-residence upper level GE courses. And so they may have to do that their first semester. But we certainly give it our best shot to get those individual students who aren't getting into their classes. We help them get in.
I want to ask, if you're asking a question, please state your name and your institution. Any other questions out here? I saw another hand over, or statements.
Hi, my name is Krista Jones from UC Riverside, and I want to echo everything that our panel said. And we're all nodding, our UC family over here, we're all nodding because we all agree. A couple of comments that I wanted to make really quick. We ask our students every year if there's something you could go back and tell your community college self, if you can go back in time, what would you tell yourself? What would you have done differently? Every single student without fail says, I wouldn't have used my GI Bill at the community college. That's a huge thing. They said, you know, back then I thought I needed the money. No, I was wrong. There's a way to do it. I need it now. And, you know, they always say if I could tell anything to community colleges, I would tell them, don't use your GI Bill. Figure out some other way to make it work. Because when you get to the university level, when you start looking at grad school, that's when you really say, gee, I wish I had my benefits now. So that's the biggest thing, the biggest challenge, I think, for our students is just figuring out a way to save their GI Bill benefits until later on when they really count. Let's see, the second thing I wanted to mention really quick, our UCR admissions page, if you go to admissions.ucr.edu, we have a special admissions portal just for military veterans. We're proud of it. One thing I wanted to mention is there's a checklist on there and a timeline of everything from your first year at community college, your second year at the community college, to your first year at a UC school. And it's customized, of course, for UCR, but it's pretty much the same for the other UCs. So if you have a student who's interested in transferring eventually to a UC school, have them check out that timeline on our admissions portal, because it lays out, even before they started at community college, before you get out of the service, here's what you should be doing. Now that you're out of the service and you enroll in a community college, here's what you should be doing. So it's a checklist. They can check it off as they go. It really helps them stay on track so that they're on track to transfer into a UC. Admissions.ucr.edu. Just click on the link for military veterans. It's our military veteran admissions checklist.
And let me make a comment for the university partners here, because I'm sure you know this. You're exactly right that we hope they preserve their benefits. Our Veterans Club president this year, really scary looking guy, maybe about 5'6", but has shoulders that are twice my size, which isn't rare. Tatted up, he's an MMA fighter, but exceptional young man and a leader. Marine, couple tours, OAF, and he came for BAH. He didn't come to go to school. He came for that paycheck. And how many, you guys know that story. I'm seeing that they didn't come to go to school. Many of our students, not all, but there are many that come for that BAH. They get there, and it's our job to convince them why they need this education. This is for upward social mobility. You're doing this to help your future self. And so we hear you, universities, we hear you, but the truth of the matter is many of our students come to get that benefit, not to go to school. So, and many of the institutions, I just saw Patty back there shaking her head, we do a darn good job at turning that around, but then 3 years later, they end up at your doorstep without enough benefits. So, hey, pass it.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Morgan from Saddleback. I would say that is something that our four-year partners, when you send student veterans out, they might hear it from them, because we tell them this all the time, and it goes in one ear and out the other. But if your students could be their former selves and tell them that, I think we might have a better success rate with that.
Other questions or statements? Oh, it has to be on the other side of the room, huh? Ryan Williams from Palomar College.
I'd like to be introduced. Okay, so I just want a quick recommendation. It's not a question. Be active, the community colleges and the universities, be active in your regions. I know somebody up there said that they are an active member in their regional meetings and have those connections already. I strongly suggest if you're not doing that, do that now. In Region 10 down in San Diego, we recently have asked the universities down in San Diego to be a part of our region, and at the first meeting that they were at, we talked about special admittance for veterans and the actual requirements that it takes to get in, because it's very different than normal students. And everybody in the room was completely floored at what it actually took to get in. And we are the certifying officials, the counselors, the administrators. We're the ones that are actually answering that question to veterans that say, what's it going to take for me to get into UCSD or SDSU? And we just say Golden 4, major prep, all those kinds of things. But in reality, Cal State San Marcos requires 2 of the 4 Golden 4. Only this. This semester is very different than this semester as far as getting in. So be active in your regions, and make sure that if you can, communicate that information to your counselors that are actually seeing people, your transfer centers, and your certifying officials, as well as if you're using work studies so that they understand it as well.
And I really believe in that, and I think the universities can give us advice regionally, locally, so we can bolster our services to help those students, because we're talking globally throughout the state. Things are really local. You know, many of our student veterans aren't going to be as transient as some of our other students. They're not going to go to as many institutions at the same time, or maybe move across the state. That's more of a rarity, though it does occur. A lot of them stay local. A lot of them have family and want to stay local. So building that connection, that network in your local community is very important.
Sam Alvarado, Fresno City College. I work with DSP&S students, but I also have veterans on my caseload. And we have the Fresno State DSP&S student come out to city twice a semester, and they will meet with all our students who will be transferring, and that includes veterans. So they will also make an appointment at Fresno State for them to go and tour, and also to make an appointment with their department. If they're a business major, they'll go to the business department, get their syllabus, or get their course, Main Street course outlined, so they know what classes to take when they go in as a junior. And so that helps a lot with the DSP&S student come out. For those students that have run out of money or having problems with financial aid, I refer all my students to the Department of Rehabilitation, because I was there for 23 years, and have the counselor, she comes out to our campus, and she'll get them on their caseload, so that way if they don't make, or they don't get any money for, or expired financial aid, they'll help them with their books, also tuition, and at the end help them with job placement. So we do that. For our students that can't have a disability in math and can't get in because they don't have the Golden 4, what we do, we go ahead and have them apply. They're denied a lot of times. We write them a letter regarding their disability and why they can't pass math. And at Fresno State, they'll use Philosophy 6 as Introduction to Logic as a substitute for the transferring math. And so we've had all our students thus far be accepted at Fresno State without the math requirement, and they've accepted Philosophy 6 at Fresno State, and that meets their graduation requirement as well.
One of the points you hit on was the external partnerships, and we need to stress that at every level, those university partners, hey, if you don't have a vet success counselor, is knowing who the voc rehab folks are in your local community, but all those partnerships for the host of services, from mental health to internships to what have you, we really emphasize that. Did you have?
I'm Margot Raff from De Anza College. Is there any way to get some kind of list that they're talking about of the exceptions and minimum requirements? It would be really helpful as a counselor to know that, helping a student, especially if they're about to run out of money and they need to take only the most, the most important or urgent classes.
Let me take a quick stab, and then I'll let the folks on stage, on the panel, answer that. A lot of institutions don't like to publicize it. Right. So what I would suggest is probably looking at your local institution and seeing if you get it from that local institution who you feed into, but go ahead, panel.
I definitely agree with that. I think that if you are wanting that very specific information, contact our office and we can provide that information. And sometimes that information is outside of our scope, and so we do have to get special approval to be able to provide that information to you. But general information, I'm sitting here thinking, it would be such a good idea for us to have a pamphlet on how to transfer as a veteran to Cal State Fullerton, and have it in these Veterans Resource Centers and community colleges with that general information that I think could be beneficial. So
we keep talking about connect with your local institution, and we're all big fat bureaucracies, so it's kind of hard to find who that person is. Does the CSU, does the UC have a list that's posted on the president, UC Office of the President, or CSU Mentor that has the points of contact for veteran services?
Yes.
Okay, good. There was one last hand, if we can get one last question or statement.
My name is Gemma Cruz. I'm from Hartnell College in Salinas. Just piggyback on the statement that Margot, I believe her name was, just made about the requirements for transfer. Does this pertain to students who are just in the local areas where they can waive certain requirements, or is it for a student veteran who's coming in like from Salinas, from where I'm from? Because we have students who are, we have a lot of students who are trying to leave our area and they want to come down here, but because they're not local students, we don't know how easy it is for them to be accepted into the larger universities, because you guys have huge populations and then you have larger populations of veterans down here. So is there like special admission for students who are not from the local areas down here for any of your schools?
We accept all our student veterans that have the same special requirements.
I mean, I wouldn't say, I think most of the people that are talking are the CSUs. I wouldn't say that the UC system has special requirements for anybody. What I was talking about was the admissions to appeal to closure process. I think that's the only thing that we really have that is different or special, because you know, the UC system is very competitive and is looking at the whole individual, you know, comprehensive review once again. So I don't know if any of the other UCs have a different answer, but I don't.
We don't have on the books, you know, special policy for veteran admission. But what we do is when there is a veteran with special circumstances, my certification officer, who is responsible for admissions for our veterans, will work very hard to help that veteran get in, whether it is through an appeal process if they've been denied, or if they just need some assistance in getting through the admissions process. So again, you know, send them to us so that we can help them.
Okay, so we have a couple minutes left, and I'm one of those administrators that still wants to be a counselor or instructor, so it's still in my blood. So I'm going to bring back and pull it all together. I want to ask just three really quickly, what's a takeaway? 3 takeaways that we got today that we can bring back to our institutions and our student veterans. Can anybody think of a takeaway that you can bring to your institution from this session? Oh, Patty's got one.
Well, it relates to the answer that I got, that even though they're late when they get admitted for priority registration, that there are classes and there are efforts that are made to make sure that they get into payable classes and classes that relate to either their major or whatever their upper division GE requirements are. And my understanding is that, at least at the Cal States, that no matter where the veteran is applying from, that they are considered on equal footing as those that are in the resident area.
Anybody else want to share something they'll bring back to their campus or their student veterans? Up in front. Something's coming back to Fresno. It's a good thing. Let's help out Central Valley.
Yeah, my name is Mario Raposo. I'm the Veterans Counselor at Fresno City College. And I think what I'm going to leave here with is the importance of the community colleges working with the UCs and the CSUs. We can't do it by ourselves, and the more connection we have with the universities, the better off our students are going to be. So that's pretty much it.
That's wonderful. That's so true.
Ed Arndt from Antelope Valley College, so I don't really have a lot close by up in the Antelope Valley, but Cal State Bakersfield is part of our campus essentially. But what my takeaway is that as long as you inform your student to actually get in contact with the school they're interested in, especially the Veterans Office, that there may be a way to get in, just make sure that you're doing that. And that's why I came to this, because I wanted to see what the next step was. I've been with AVC for 5.5 years now, and I wanted to know, after they leave, what's happening to them, because half the time they don't come back. Once you leave the AV, you don't want to come back. Thank you.
Yeah, we don't always get to see our success stories, right? I would say my takeaway, and I'm sorry because 2 of them are up here, that I'm going to harass my local institutions to bring those outreach aides or those peer mentors over to our campus in September and October every year. Actually, maybe I'll get calling on that. Huh. Yeah, I'm going to close this up. I really thank the crowd. You guys stayed for a while. Oh, you have one more piece? Yeah, like to come up?
One more. I hate to say this.
No.
You know, at the risk of getting stoned, to your comment about the CSUs, For San Diego State University, it is generally true that we will work with those veterans to get them in. But as most of you already know, with our impacted majors, that has some effect. And the associate degree for transfer is going to have technically some effect on some majors regarding additional consideration for veterans coming into SDSU. We don't know the full impact of that yet, but for example, for sociology, some veterans could be disadvantaged in that or a couple other majors because of that system-wide agreement that we're doing with the community colleges out there. Yes, exactly. So again, we've heard it from the panel and others in here. Our website for veterans for admission is pretty specific, but in something like that, if there is a question, they should get a hold of us directly by phone or email.
And I can vouch for San Diego State. We've funneled a few of our students over there. They get back to our students. They do a wonderful job of connecting with our students. You always have to be scared as a university if you take in students from the Pasadena cities or the Cerritos of the world, because you'll end up getting some very active veterans that have high expectations for veteran services. I want to close up because it is time. I really appreciate the interest and the passion in this crowd. You guys did a great job. You made it very interactive. You weren't hard enough on them. So next time, really bring the fire. One of the things I want to end on is the fact that sometimes our jobs are really painful and difficult in what we do. I've seen a lot of 5150s, discipline issues. We've even seen suicides among our student groups. But we work with a large group of student veterans, most of us. We have large groups, and they come in all shapes and sizes, all backgrounds. But the one thing that's true, it's something that Dr. Jackson spoke to. These are real life heroes, and they really deserve what we do. They deserve that extra hour, that extra email, that extra effort. They slept in the sand over there. Something that really pushes me. My brother's still in Afghanistan right now. We're hoping he comes back before Christmas. We're all praying for him. He's done great work over there, but he's in Kabul, and he should be coming back in the next couple days, couple weeks, we say. But there are a lot of men and women that are in harm's way still. And what you do won't only affect your students now, it's going to affect those young men and women that are coming back seeking a better life at your campuses. So keep up amazing work, keep up your passion, keep up your fire, and when you don't have it, pass the baton to someone else and let them carry the torch. But thank you all for what you do, and keep it up.